Attention please. The content of this channel is okay for children ages 13 and up. As a fellow parent, what you allow your children to consume is still up to your discretion. And with that said, let's get back to our scheduled program. Today we're going to take a look at the modern toys of the Decepticon Headmasters that were originally released in the Titans Return series and then later re-released through a Walmart exclusive Generations line. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the history of the Headmasters and how this whole concept came to a head.
In the midst of the Cybertronian War, special mission teams of Autobots and Decepticons blasted their way to planet Nebulon. There, the powerful Transformers let the intelligent Nebulons become the heads of their robots.
Master Transformers, much more than meets the eye.
But the Headmasters were still Autobots and Decepticons, and fierce new battles erupted. Follow the adventures of the Headmaster Transformers and the equally incredible Target Master Transformers in Marvel Comics.
The Decepticon Headmasters were part of a concept to reinvigorate Transformers as the toy line was dying out in the late 1980s. And that multiverse of Transformers lore that I spoke about in my Impactor video applies here as well. There was an episode from the G1 cartoon where Brainstorm, one of the Autobot headmasters, watches a race between Rodimus Prime, driven by Daniel Witwicky, versus Blur. Rodimus beats Blur in the race, and Brainstorm hinted that this is the advantage the Transformers needed to evolve and become more efficient.
Brainstorm's trying to prove that we could function better with human operators inside us.
Human partners, highbrow! The problem is where they would inhabit us when we're in robot form!
Rodimus didn't just win the race based on his actual speed or skill, but due to the collaborative effort of pairing with an organic being. Rebirth episodes 1 through 3 talk about the beginning of the Headmasters in the cartoon continuity, as well as many other toy lines. The season was originally slated for 5 episodes, but ended at 3 episodes, and that was the end of Generation 1 Transformers, in the American cartoons at least. In other media, there was a 4-issue Marvel Comics miniseries that released alongside the cartoon. The story was non-canonical compared to the cartoon's plot, most likely because the comic wasn't trying to launch 4 new toy lines. In Japan, there was a Headmasters cartoon exclusively, as well as a Headmasters manga that was published in TV Magazine in 1987 through 1988. They handled the backstory of the Headmasters and their concept completely differently. It was released overseas a few months earlier than the final season aired in America. All the different storylines seem pretty exciting to revisit, granted the cartoon's probably the hardest to get through. The Decepticons we're going to cover today are the core Decepticon Headmasters and their Nebulon counterparts. I don't own any of the Terrorcons, and I'd wait for them all to re-release if I were to ever buy them. The Horror Cons I'll come to in a future video, as well as the Target Masters. I don't have the room, otherwise I'd have Black Zarak, Ortmax, and Scorponok just to have all of the Headmasters. Now where were we? Oh yes, Skullcruncher and Grax, Mindwipe and Vorath, and Weirdwolf with Monzo. For the sake of your attention span and mine, we'll just talk about the American cartoon characters for the most part, but I will dip into some of the other areas of Headmasters per se. So I spent a few hours reading about Weirdwolf. I ended up getting pretty invested in his backstory on the TF Wiki that I didn't really get a chance to read too much into Skullcruncher or Mindwipe at length. If you want to just skip to the figure stats, I don't blame you, but if you want to be just as confused as I am, jumping from the 3-episode plot of Rebirth right into the Headmasters anime, then sit tight.
俺はスカル。俺はワイプだ。ヘッドマスター、知らない。俺、グリムロック。お前たちやっつける。
Now normally when someone says long story short and they end up talking for about a half hour, I'll just say that Weirdwolf is an opportunist, and Mindwipe and Skullcruncher end up being his goons, more or less, to help feed that ambition. We're not talking Starscream levels of wanting to be the leader of the bad guys, but we're definitely in Leozack territory when it comes to Weirdwolf's ambition. And mind you, the toys always exist first, and then their backstory is presented differently when they hit whatever form of media in America, UK, and Japan. The Japanese cartoon did a 180 where the US Rebirth trilogy went. Instead of being piloted by Nebulons, all of these Cybertronians escaped a war-torn Cybertron to a planet called Master. You can see where this is going. And they built larger, lifeless transsector bodies to survive the planet's hostile nature. So in the American continuity of humans or Nebulons wearing exosuits made out of Autobot and Decepticon heads became headmasters, the Japanese continuity, Weirdwolf is the head. He is the robot. The body is just a shell. Similar to the US's take on the Nebulons, the Cybertrons, Autobots, and Destrons, Decepticons, of the anime had to train vigorously to become headmasters. There may be some continuity in the US comics after the Rebirth episodes aired. Me as an adult 40 years later looking to learn more about these characters just came out of this more confused than I already was, and I'm sure I didn't do you any favors either, but moving along to our next section. Figure stats. Since we're working with 3 figures, let me start with the longest figure of the bunch, Skullcruncher. When transformed, comes in at about 10 inches. Weirdwolf is just shy of 8 inches in his alt mode, and Mindwipe is 9 inches wide left to right and about 5 inches front to back with his shield tail combo mounted. And the only reason why I'm even mentioning these specs is because they're going to eat up some shelf space if you like to have stuff in alt mode. All 3 bots are deluxe class figures, so they all stand around 5.5 to 6 inches tall, given whatever accessories they may be holding or how you have them positioned. Officially 5.5 to 6 inches tall. The original figures for this trio came out in 1987. Weirdwolf got a Timelines figure in 2007, and Mindwipe had his own Toys R Us exclusive Hasbro Lego quotations called Creo in 2014. And one thing I'll say about Titan's Return is, granted, they released a lot of figures under that line who were not originally headmasters because that was its thing. As someone who totally missed that wave of Transformers merchandise when it was in stores, I am glad that so many obscure characters who have been shelved since the 80s made a return in stores, and now there is a demand for them in newer lines like Age of the Primes and whatever is coming next. All 3 of these figures made a comeback to retail in 2016 under the Titans Return toy line in the second wave of figures, despite none of them showing in the series at all. Weirdwolf released as Wolf Wire and Skullcruncher released as Skull Smasher due to trademark issues. The figures didn't have Hasbro designations, but the Legends figures released in 2016 from Takara did. Weirdwolf was LG30, Skullcruncher was LG22, and Mindwipe, was LG34. The Takara Legends figures also came with partner droids or mini-mechs for the headmasters to pilot when not serving as a sidearm. If I had to categorize them, I'd say they were like core class triple changer target masters. The original Titans Return releases look slightly different from their Legends counterpart. The Takara Legends figures retooled all of the headmasters to look like their counterparts from the Japanese Headmasters cartoon. In 2021, all of these figures, including the Autobot headmasters, were released as a Walmart exclusive, fixing any manufacturing issues the previous figures had, and including the Legends version of the headmasters with the figures. They all came in boxes that resembled their original 1987 packaging. Sadly, no Japanese target masters were thrown into this latest wave, and those are the versions that we're reviewing today. I did a quick search regarding upgrade kits for the figures, but I didn't come up with much, so you're not going to get that section in this video that I normally do. But I did see that people took to removing the little screws on the inside of Skullcruncher's legs to slide his gator feet off and then flip them onto the inside, the leg cavity, so they could serve as heels. The figure does have a tendency just to fall backwards, which to that I say, I am so thankful for ankle articulation on modern figures. And that will do it for the stats. I'll state the obvious, they all come with a headmaster and a weapon, which if you care to entertain can double as some kind of vehicle battle station gimmick for the figure. Which leads us to our next section, what I like about the figures. While not having the original figures to compare these to, I will say that for figures all designed and released in 2016 and for being deluxes, these are some nice ass deluxe figures. Despite their engineering limitations at the time, the use of ball joints to handle the articulation from robot to alt mode is pretty good. 9 times out of 10, the headmasters are 1-for-1 replicants of the figure that they come with, except for Monzo. But that said, he is cartoon accurate, and the retooling of the faces definitely match the Headmaster's anime. While not my flavor of accessory, the guns being makeshift turrets or whatever for the figures is a nice addition to the figure's playability. Sometimes us almost 50-year-olds, as Chris Jam would say, need to remember these are made for kids. The other nice touch to these reimagined figures is, while not exactly replicating the functionality of the G1 figures with the chest power scales that would change based off of what Headmaster was mounted to a figure, the figures all managed to have a modern cockpit made for the Headmasters to fit in while in their alt modes and just like in their G1 counterparts. If you lose the Headmaster, well, you're asked out. The head articulation on Weirdwolf and Skullcruncher while in their alt modes is a nice touch, especially the platinum grill and the clear detailed tongue respectively. Mindwipe's mouth can open, but the head articulation was an afterthought. I will say though, John Warden, the designer responsible for this trio, was cooking with how Mindwipe's lower legs become his wings. I thought that was damn clever. The paint really pops on all of these figures too. I don't know what it is about the mix of green and dark magenta with hints of silver and white and clear indigo plastics that just works so well, especially for a Decepticon color scheme. It just screams bad guy to me. And picking these figures up at the tail end of 2024, again for figures that were designed and molded in 2016 and still being re-released today as other figures, is a testament to the work that John put in. And that's going to lead us into our next section. Cost and value. We're way past the point of FOMO with these guys. I think I got a pretty good deal picked up. I got the entire wave of figures brand new in box for $179.99. After taxes and shipping, it ended up being $212.08. 25 bucks a pop times 7, I may have saved even a little bit of money. Which to me is crazy because I put Hardhead up for sale right away. I already owned the figure, and someone had the nerve to ask for $5 off the $20 I listed it for. And maybe it's just me. I'm not in the business of reselling figures, especially for a higher price than I paid, or just something I feel that the figure's worth. To me, I just, if you want the figure as a Transformers collector, I don't want to be the person that's going to charge you $100 over what the figure's worth to sell it. That said, I know some people like to buy things they don't really have money for and put them right back up for sale, or shit happens, what may have you. But at TFCon, good lord, the vendors were vendoring and the scalpers were scalping. Hardhead and almost any other figure I saw, especially the Walmart package figures, were going for $50 to $70 a pop. Were they moving at those prices? I don't know. But I do know I paid 35 bucks for a Power of the Prime's Power Glide, and in hindsight, TFCon just kind of does that to your wallet. Maybe I'm just a dummy. That's probably it. Anyway, moving along to things I don't like. Honestly, if these figures were released in 2020 with the offerings we're getting now, I probably would have cooked these figures. A lot of fans really like to bring up parts forming being a tired gimmick. Attitudes like, I think all figures should be one piece and have weapon storage or it's certified ass, especially for the money I pay these billionaires. But then they'll turn a blind eye every time someone releases an Optimus Prime with his dumbass trailer you gotta put in a box somewhere because it doesn't fit on your shelf. Like if I had to nitpick, I think Skullcruncher's little gator paws are annoying. They kind of just pop out of their sockets and you have to set them back in. The plastic's a little malformed, but that's going to happen with old figures. And his feet in robot mode, they're not really the best. There was plenty of room in that leg cavity to have something that could fold down to keep him upright. The cockpit for the Headmasters in alt mode on Skullcruncher is also made out of some clear soft plastic. Older copies, or even this one, I've read about paint smudging or coming off of the plastic cockpit when it's opened, so you just need to be careful with that. A common complaint about most of these figures, not just these, but a majority of Titan's Return figures, is that the hands at the slightest touch will just fold back into their forearm cavity. And of course, some of the Headmasters don't really stay in. Highbrow from my Autobot suffered from this. That's more of an annoyance than a criticism. Again, for 2016, these are pretty impressive figures for what they are, especially since they really only compared to toys made 29 years prior. And that'll take us to our next section, which are my final thoughts. I ended up picking this lot of Headmasters up for two reasons. One, because of the Japanese cartoon. I remember the toys that originally came out, but I couldn't recall all that much about the actual characters, and that's because they all debuted in a season that was an hour long in total, 39 years ago. I started watching, the horrible English dub of Headmasters that's on YouTube.
Galvatron is furious over the fact that his offensive is not effective.
Don't waste any more time. Take them in there quickly. Galvatron must think that we're a bunch of useless morons.
All right, let me use my magic spell then.
But ended up getting my hands on the Japanese dub with proper English subtitles. Thank God.
How come a robot would feel sleepy?
2, I got Hardhead and a lot of figures I purchased back in 2023, which I talked about in the Vroom Bros video, which you should totally check out, by the way. Like, comment, and subscribe. Originally I was thinking of just offloading him because I was really hyper-focused on building a Studio Series 86 collection with the robots I remember. But then I just kind of branched out little by little, and I grabbed Titan's Return Decepticon Target Masters, who are now Headmasters. And when researching why the Takara Tomy versions actually had Target Masters instead of weird gun vehicles for the Headmasters, etc., well, yeah, I just didn't get it. Were these Target Masters? Were these Headmasters? Who are actually Headmasters? Who are Target Masters? Who are Terracons? Who are Horrorcons? Who are the Monster Bots? And why are they all Headmasters now? To kind of flip it into perspective, I think there are a lot of gimmicky G1 figures that Hasbro is modernizing, or characters from other toy lines, universes that are getting G1 stylized. The Pretenders, for example, are getting modern figures without their original gimmick or scale. Titan's Return is a perfect example of we had the licensing for it, so why not? And really brought life back into Transformers collecting for older folks trying to collect modern versions of G1 figures. Some I've never seen as a kid or had are getting modern remakes, and I'm ready to jump at the opportunity to own them. But at the same time, when I realize something about the figures isn't canon to their origin, I'm a little reluctant to pull the trigger, and I want to hold out for a potential re-release. I mean, I feel my time in this space with y'all will be short-lived. If I'm around talking Transformers in 10 years, then they're doing something right. All of that to say, these are all great figures and a welcome upgrade from their 1987 counterparts. I appreciate and also curse that Hasbro and Takara kind of did their own thing with a lot of these figures. If money and space weren't an object, I'd get all versions, but I think the Walmart reissue is combining the best of both worlds, and I'm a little envious of the Target Masters the Takara Legend figures came with, but it is what it is. It's clear that these molds have some legs left in them, from Legends coming right out of the gate and repurposing Mindwipe's mold for the eHobby exclusive of Convobat, or Skullcruncher immediately getting used for 2017's Gatorface and Croc, who were originally an Action Master toy, and the 2025 use of Weirdwolf's mold to make Carnivac, who also hasn't seen daylight since their original release as a Pretender in 1988, is a testament to the design of these figures, and in the next video we'll look at their Autobot counterparts. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey, and hopefully if you learned something new or interesting, I'd love for you to share that in the comments, or just talk about your experience with these figures, or how you feel about them. I know I didn't talk about the personalities or the backstories of Skullcruncher and Mindwipe all that much, but there is plenty of other great videos from other YouTube creators to get your history fix. That said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you. Peace.